I'm Sarah Russell.
I'm JQ Walker.
I'm Hind, and we are
the Neurodivergent Report, a research-based podcast by and for neurodivergent brains.
In each episode, we'll explore topics relating to neurodiversity and coping strategies by reviewing the literature and discussing current topics.
We will also have interview episodes where we sit down with experts in the field and listeners like you, with the hope that together we can all learn to heal in community.
However you are able to engage, thank you for being here. We have a full itinerary of topics and your wonderful book to discuss. But first we have to make people care about each other.
Right.
And so
That's
that
true.
always happens through silly conversations about the weather or like where we're from. So yeah, I'm very cold. It's 2 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh my. You know, people always said to me growing up, like, or as an adult, you grew up here. What's your deal? Like, why do you hate the cold so much? And it never changed for me. When I was 5, I hated the cold. When I was 40, I hated the cold.
That's so interesting.
But now that we have lived in California for 2 years, when it's 60, I'm wearing a puffy coat. So.
I've had a lot of family members migrate down to Florida, and they're the exact same way. They can't even come back to visit in the wintertime.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. So I was really excited to hear from your publicist, Kim, because, one, because I'm always excited to hear from people who want to talk to me, but 2, because sleep is like one of my neurodivergent special interest topics / the thing I've been trying to solve for myself and my kids my whole life.
Yeah.
Does it feel that way for you? Is that sort of how you got to writing this book?
It is. So my inspiration for writing the book was kind of two-pronged, I guess. First, the book that I wanted, that I needed, even though I do this for a living, the book that I needed personally wasn't out there. So there was nothing really bringing together the science and all the resources that a person needs. And then really, again, evidence-based strategies that can help for sleep that are also realistic. So that was my first inspiration. My second really is for people not to feel alone. As parents of neurodiverse kids and
why am I the only one that can't get their kids to sleep on time?
You're not. Yes, that's why you're not. That's why I can do this for a living. But I think
that's a
when
really
people
good
realize
point. The sleep specialist would be out of a job if it was like totally just a willpower issue.
It's true. It's true. And I want people to know it's not anything it's not bad parenting and it's not bad sleep habits. It's biology and a combination of things. So I want to kind of take the pressure off people.
I'm so glad. That was a really nice summary of sort of the breadth of what we're going to be talking about. I think, so let me just introduce you really quickly. Today, I'm speaking with Dr. Melissa Moore, who is a licensed psychologist and board-certified behavioral sleep medicine specialist. That's a wordful. Is that really?
It is.
The title? Amazing. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that didn't get like... Basically, we're going to be talking today about her over 20 years of experience supporting all the people through their sleep issues. And particularly, we're going to be speaking about your new book, which is called The Good Sleep Guide for Neurodivergent Kids. I love that there's like a framework, like there's actionable strategies at the end, like, okay, I've read this book, but now what's the plan? And we're going to talk all about that. But I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, this is wonderful. I think, gosh, I have a terrible memory, but I'm pretty sure you're the first person who's going to come on here and talk to us about sleep. So this can be like my whole sleep hygiene demystified episode. I love it.
Great. Perfect. And
Yeah.
I love to talk about sleep. So we're a good
Why?
combination
Like,
this morning.
how did that, how did that become your career, I think is my question.
That's a great question. So when I was a graduate student, I was really interested in teenagers and I loved working with teenagers. And I wanted to do something that had a really big impact. And so I started looking into things that were, problematic for teenagers and what things really caused health problems. And not to be morbid, but the leading causes of death in adolescents still are suicides, homicides, and accidents. And so I started looking into what the common thread was, and it led me to sleep. And then I just jumped in full force into the rabbit hole of sleep, and I loved it. And the other thing is that when you can help people with their sleep, they're so happy. It really can change lives. And that obviously was a huge draw for me.
I mean, if we stop and think about sleep as a basic need, it's at the very bottom of our pyramid. Without proper sleep, we're not going to have enough energy to go get that food, to go have our emotional connections, to do any of the executive functioning stuff, and even like regulate our emotions. So,
Exactly.
I
That's a
always like to
huge
think
thing.
about a toddler who hasn't had their nap. Like, what happens to them? Because all that same stuff happens to grown-ups. They're just better at, like, I don't know. We forget that we need all of these things as well. That is basically what I was getting.
Right. And I think you brought up a good point, which was regulation. I think not getting enough sleep or having poor quality sleep causes overall dysregulation. So,
Which is why it would impact
physiological.
things like the suicide rates, things like accident rates.
Yep.
Even
Yeah.
homicides, really. I mean, like, who's out? Like, nobody is regulated out there killing people. So,
Right.
amazing. Okay, so I love that. Can I ask you a personal question and just like,
Sure.
did you want to work with teenagers because you had a need as a teenager?
Yeah, I would say definitely. I had so much empathy for teenagers because my
That's usually
adolescence
it.
was sticky. Yeah. Yeah. It was a little bit thorny. And it's a tough time. It's a tough time for everything. It's a tough time even biologically for sleep, believe it or not. So in adolescence,
Interesting.
in adolescence, there's a natural physiological shift that happens. And this happens to people all over the world. It's been studied everywhere. So Hong Kong, Australia, Europe, South America, the United States.
When we say adolescents, are we saying like 12 years old?
Yeah, I would say starting around 12 or 13.
Perfect.
There's this physiologic shift happens in our circadian rhythm. And there's nothing to do about it because that's something that's internally biologically generated. And so it becomes harder to fall asleep just because you're a teenager. And that doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of all the other stuff that's going on. You have this biological thing that's making sleep harder. I know, see?
Yeah, there's all these changes that happen around that age. I have a 12-year-old boy, and we've always had some sleep disturbances, I think, but right now we need to get a handle on it because it's only going to get much more difficult. He already has to wake up in time to get on the school bus at 6:20 a.m. That's too early, but that's a different podcast episode.
I know. I could
That's
have
like
a lot to say
reforming
about
the
that.
education system.
It is. And even in states, California was one of the first states to implement the later school start times for middle school and high school. But
Oh.
in both of the school districts that I've lived in California and the one I was in Pennsylvania, they have a workaround, which is period 0. So technically, it's optional. It's
Mm-hmm.
not required, but especially for kids that are getting services like OT, speech, learning help, if they want an
Wow.
elective, they have to do period 0 and they have to get to school at, 7:30 anyway.
Gotcha. So for the kids who need the most support, they're the ones who
That's
are gonna fall through the
exactly it.
cracks always.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Um, and it's probably because no parents of a neurodivergent kid was sitting on the school board and helping to make those decisions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, that's
that's
the
cool. I
thing.
didn't even know there were examples of places that were starting to do
Mhm.
later.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're
It's a
doing
great
research
thing.
on, like, the impacts as well.
Yeah, and what you see is higher graduation rates, obviously fewer lates and absences, better grades. It impacts even more things than you would think. It's pretty strong. And um I know that you also like to talk about science, which, gives me the warm fuzzies. Um but science really shows us that this is so important. It shows us that
Mhm.
no matter what time kids have to wake up, they're actually going to bed the same time. I think parents worry, oh, if we have later school start time, they're just going to stay up later. But the research doesn't show that. And even right after high school graduation, if you look at jobs, whatever people are doing next, secondary education, they're
Mhm.
still going to bed at the same time. So it really has to do with that morning start.
That's that's really good to hear. Um, yeah. I have a question here that's like, why does traditional sleep advice often fail neurodivergent families? But what even is traditional sleep advice?
I think
Let's just
we always start with sleep hygiene or sleep habits.
Mhm.
And what's important is
Sleep
number
hygiene
one,
is things like going to
yeah,
bed at the same time, not
yeah.
eating right beforehand. Yeah.
Well, I think it's
Okay.
important to, I think it's important to distill down what really are the important things that are going to change your sleep. And
Hmm.
so when it comes to diet, for any one person, they might like not be able to eat spicy foods, or it would be a good idea not to eat before bed. That isn't really something for most people that's going to impact their sleep, unless it's caffeine. Caffeine, different story. Um, but having a bedtime routine, having a bedtime, those are the two most important things. The other thing about sleep is that it's been studied in pretty shockingly specific detail. So we know that for adults, the ideal temperature for sleep is 68 degrees. We know for kids, it's a little bit higher, maybe 70. It should be
Mhm.
dark. It should be quiet. Um, a sound machine is great. Or if you don't have that, just, a fan or whatever you have to have that consistent noise is really important.
Mhm.
So I think it's important to be flexible, and it's important to have good sleep habits. Good sleep habits, I think, are kind of necessary, but not sufficient. So
Mhm.
you have to start with
And
good
it's
sleep
the
habits.
repetitiveness of the habit that's helpful. Because if we think about, like, the circadian rhythm, that's just a release of melatonin, like, at bedtime, but really, like,
Hmm.
at sundown,
Hmm.
right?
A little bit before you start feeling sleepy and fall asleep. What's
Mhm.
interesting about the release of melatonin is the most important cue is morning sunlight. So how well you're gonna sleep that night actually starts in the morning.
Taking it in through your eyeballs.
You better get out here to California, Sarah.
Oh my goodness. I've heard great things about Thailand as well. Um,
Oh, Well, yes. Yeah.
I am like a little cat. I'll put myself in a nice sunny window and just like close my eyes and
Perfect.
just feel the sun coming through. Especially in the wintertime, that's super important for people like
Right.
me who get
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah. And also, I think you don't have to, go outside for 30 minutes when it's 2 degrees. You can just eat your
Exactly.
breakfast in a sunny place. Like, just like you
Mm-hmm.
said, sit in a sunny place. And the natural sunlight is really the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, the consistency, the repetitiveness,
Because your body
getting your,
learns what to expect.
hmm exactly. I
Just like
always
I
think
wake up
about like,
and I go to the bathroom every day. My body just expects that.
yep, exactly. Exactly. And there's something, you know, it's biologically helpful, but it's also comforting. I feel like it's comforting to have that same routine. And one of the things that I think actually is important about a bedtime routine is that it's soothing. And so sometimes people will ask me about, what about lavender? What about magnesium? What about white noise versus brown noise versus jungle sounds versus water sounds? And none of that no specifics have been shown to improve sleep in
Mm-hmm.
that way. But I think that if you like it, just do it. If you like the smell of
Mm-hmm.
lavender, that's great.
If it helps
That
you
is
to
going to make
wind
you feel good.
down.
Yeah, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think. Um, but the soothing
Especially
and
since
sensory
habits can
parts.
be so hard to stick to. If there are pieces in it that you really enjoy for those sensory reasons, uh,
Yeah,
you should definitely be arranging things that way.
right. And I think for kids, bedtime routines are kind of fraught with challenges. A lot of
Mm,
kids really hate brushing their teeth. It's really hard for them, um, from a sensory perspective. And so I try to encourage parents to do a more thorough brushing earlier so that bedtime isn't, just awful. Because teeth brushing is one of the things that really can make bedtime, the whole thing, awful. It can and throw everything off. Um,
yeah,
you can do that at a different time. You really want the bedtime routine to be calming and enjoyable.
that's interesting. I never considered doing that. That's so funny. Um, Amazing. Okay. So, what does it mean to get good sleep?
That's a great question. That's a great question. There are going to be recommendations everywhere. So, especially for kids, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the National Sleep Foundation, they all put out recommended hours. But those recommended hours are really based on years and years of studying how much sleep kids do get, not necessarily exactly how much they need. So, it's kind of like a growth
That's
curve.
so interesting.
'Cause we don't know exactly, and I think that would be really hard to study and in some situations unethical. Are you really gonna, sleep deprive a kid and
Yeah,
see what happens to all aspects of their functioning? We know
right.
that kids need sleep.
Right.
So,
That's
I
so
think
interesting to remember too, because sometimes people will get down on social sciences and research studies in general, and it's like, well, they can't do that and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, yeah, we actually can't study it that
yeah,
way. It
yeah,
can't
yeah,
be like empirically um, pure and
right,
also
and
humane and kind.
exactly, exactly. There is one group where it has been studied, and that is teenagers. So getting back to adolescents, we know that ideally they're gonna get 9.25 hours of sleep. No teenagers are getting that, but I really encourage people to look, instead at how their kids are functioning and how they're functioning. So, do you wake up on your own in the morning? When you wake up,
Mm.
do you feel like you got hit by a truck? You know, are you falling asleep during the day? Those kinds of things, really functioning and how you're feeling are I think, more important than the exact number of hours. Now, I will say when people say you hear celebrities or leaders say, I only need 4 hours of sleep per night. And I really don't buy that because we don't know what amazing things you could have done if you had 7 hours of sleep per night. But I think when it gets down to, somewhere between 7 and 10, that really you want to look at functioning. Um, and for kids, they show sleepiness in a different way. They're not necessarily just lethargic. They can just be more irritable. Sometimes it's more
Because
hyperactivity.
sometimes kids get like the zoomies.
The zoomies, exactly. And that happens a
Yeah.
lot at bedtime. So
Yeah.
there is something to be said for missing your window.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Actually, I'm gonna circle back to the caffeine thing because
Sure.
there's this I don't know if I even want to call it a myth, but there's this saying that I've heard that oh, I could drink a cup of coffee and go straight to sleep. And I don't think that's because neurodivergent people process caffeine differently. I think it's because those people are so super sleep deprived. What do you think?
I think you're exactly right.
Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
you're exactly right.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I think if you fall asleep when your head hits the pillow, caffeine or not, you are too sleep deprived.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it
Because
should
the
take
only
us somewhere
reason,
between
sorry,
10 and 40 minutes to fall asleep. That's
that's
normal and
normal?
healthy. Yeah.
Wow, we should expect that? Incredible.
Yes. Yeah.
That's amazing. It's amazing, actually. I was gonna say something from before.
Caffeine.
Yeah, caffeine. So the reason why caffeine keeps us awake or gives us energy, that's kind of an illusion, right? Because what caffeine really does is it blocks the receptors for adenosine in our brain, which is the thing that makes us
Exactly.
sleepy. So it just like prevents the sleepiness from sticking. But if you're already so tired, then that
It doesn't
doesn't matter.
matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's really nothing that will make you less sleepy. I think about this with driving. So, like rolling down the window, turning up music, none of that is going to help you. And caffeine only temporarily blocks the impact of sleepiness.
It's an
The
illusion.
only thing that can help you is sleeping.
Oh man. Well, I love how nowadays the cars tell you like, "Hey, you've been driving too long. I think you might need to pull over and take a nap."
Yep. I love that, actually.
We should
They
we
even have
should be
technology.
forced to comply.
It would be a good idea. I don't
Good
think people
step
would
in
go
the
for it, but I
direction.
think it would be a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Um okay. So, yeah. All right. So let's snap back to how can I help my kid design a sleep routine that helps them, because there's a lot of advice like no screen time so many hours before bedtime, like do this, do that. Everybody's different. Everybody
Exactly.
regulates their nervous system differently. Everybody's got like temperature needs, like
Yep.
one of my kids likes a very cold room, one of my kids doesn't, that's a problem.
Yep.
How do we design bedtime routines that actually work for our kids instead of this is what I'm supposed to do?
Yeah. So there are I think about 5 S's. This is how I remember what's important about a bedtime routine. One is that it should be short. So 30 minutes, maybe 45 if they like to take a long time in the bath. Um, it should be sweet. As I mentioned before, if your kid is really, challenged by reading independently, don't do it as part of the bedtime routine. Just read to them or don't have reading be part of the bedtime routine. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
gonna get struck by lightning for some of the things I'm gonna say, but
You know what? If it's triggering for your kid, it's not the right time for bed.
exactly,
Or yeah, it's not the
exactly.
right place.
Right. And then soothing, as we talked about, you want it to be soothing from a sensory perspective. Sometimes part of the bedtime routine is something like petting your cat or petting your dog because that feels really good to some
Co-regulation.
people.
And it does
Yeah,
feel really good.
yeah. Um, it should really all go in the same direction. So you don't want like upstairs bath, downstairs snack, upstairs massage, downstairs good night. You want it all to be going in the
Mhm.
same direction toward wherever you're going to be sleeping.
Yeah,
And
too many opportunities for distractions.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And also, you know, if you think about it, when you're driving, you don't start slowing down, you know, at the stop sign. You need to start slowing down before. And this is one of the best ways that your brain understands that it's preparing for sleep. So, part of the streamlined aspect of bedtime routines is really just once the bedtime routine starts, it's all things that are related to sleep, lights out, you're done. And the last thing is same. The bedtime routine should be the same. Maybe not exact, it's okay to read different books.
Mhm.
But in general, it should be the same every night. I know for my son, at one point we were like, oh, you don't have to take a bath every night. It's okay. And sleep was not happening without that part of the routine. So I kind of am pretty flexible, but I use those 5 S's to kind of guide how I think about things. I think I'm probably more flexible than a lot of sleep experts in terms of electronics and their role in the bedtime routine. I don't think that we can say, based on research, that all electronics are horrible for sleep for all people. It's just,
Yeah.
I think it's more nuanced than that. And so if a family comes to me and the thing that is keeping their really hyperactive toddler in bed long enough to settle down is Bluey, I am certainly not going to be taking that away. So for some people, I think that it's not that electronics
That
are
makes me
keeping them
feel so much
asleep.
better as a mom.
I know, maybe I talk about this to make myself feel better as a mom.
Well,
Um,
honestly, I have looked at a lot of the research on the blue lights, and it's always really small sample sizes. Like, not everybody even agrees that it makes a meaningful difference. And
I don't
as
think,
you said
yeah,
earlier, the morning sun actually makes a really big difference in your circadian rhythm.
yep,
And I think it's if anything, the screens are just going to help you ignore you're tired.
exactly. I think that that's true, but I also think it
But
can
for
help
kids, we
you.
don't let that happen to them.
Right, right, right. It also might help you um not worry so much, not ruminate, not invent new things that are really exciting right before bedtime.
Mhm.
I think one thing that I've learned over the years from my son, from families that I worked with, is that distraction is actually a really important part of falling asleep for a lot of people. The right level of distraction. I
That's
always
really
tell kids that
interesting.
the best brain for sleeping is calm and busy. And, sometimes that's really confusing, but there's nothing that we can do to force ourselves or our kids to fall asleep. Even sleep medicines, there's nothing we can do to force it except for anesthesia, which hopefully you don't have at your house. Um, and so what we have to do is we just set up the right conditions and then we have to wait for sleep to come. We just have to
Mhm.
wait. And during that time that we're waiting, we want to keep our brains calm. And so keeping them busy, the right level of busy can really help.
Yeah. Wow. So my husband, this has always been like a really he has to listen to things to fall asleep, and I was always like, "What is wrong with you?" I grew up like I didn't have a TV in my room or anything like that, so it had to be quiet. Obviously I got used to it because I love him. But I always was kind of like, what is wrong with you? um,
Yeah,
but nothing is wrong with him. He's got a different brain. He's got like a busy brain, I guess.
Mhm.
And it can just like wake you up at night. I would hate to like all of a sudden be like on the verge of sleeping and then have this really great idea and then go, "Ooh!" Could you imagine? That would feel awful.
I can imagine because it does happen. It happens to me, and you have to be engaged enough, like counting sheep, that kind of stuff, it's not gonna work.
Mm-mm.
Um, but maybe counting backwards from 100 by threes might work.
Mhm.
It has to
Oh,
be the right.
my favorite advice was, what did you used to fall asleep to when you were a kid? Like, if you were sick, some people would be like, "Oh, my dad used to watch golf, and it would always make me fall asleep," or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, going back to a safe place in your life is always a good starting place for looking for, like, grounding strategies and things
Yeah.
like that.
And I
Obviously,
think,
if your childhood was traumatic, do not go back there.
we
Just
but I think it can be really specific, and sometimes we have to work a little
Yes.
bit to find out what that is for ourselves and for our kids. Like, if you're really into lawnmowers, think about lawnmowers. Think about all the different kinds of lawnmowers there are. Think about all the details of the lawnmower. If you're really into rides at Disneyland, walk yourself through the rides at Disneyland if that's something that's calming. I don't think there's any one thing that's calming for any one person.
That's true. Um, one of the things that I ask everybody on this show is like, what kind of grounding strategies do you use in your personal life? And I am always surprised by what people tell me because, like, yeah, maybe we'll have like breath work is our thing, but like, how do you do it? And it's always so different. Um,
Yeah. I
yeah,
love
so I love
hearing
that.
those things, especially from kids. They're so cool.
Ooh, do you often get to hear from kids?
Oh, yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, I do. Lawnmowers, like I said,
Ah,
were one thing. I
interesting.
think I wrote about this in my book, but, one person that I worked with really loved gift shops, and she really loved the gift shops at the end of each ride at Disney.
Oh,
And so while she was waiting for sleep, she would just walk herself through the gift shops at the end of all the rides at Disney. Another
that's
person
so
that I worked
cute.
with would imagine, the sushi train that sometimes goes around restaurants. They would imagine what was coming by them on the sushi train.
Sushi train at restaurants?
Yeah. The how they'll have sushi going around like a.
Like on a conveyor belt?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I need to get out of rural Connecticut. Uh, honey, that sounds amazing. I don't really even like raw fish, but just like the dinner and a show.
Yeah, yeah. There are always veggie sushi and
Oh.
California rolls.
Okay, so maybe I just need some more grounding exercises for my kid because he always says, my 12-year-old, he always says that he needs to have his screen at bedtime because it helps him regulate. He's like
Mhm.
latched on to this is the language that mom uses, so this is the language I'm going to use to get what I want. Um, however, sorry, that's a little harsh. Um,
What does he like to do or
Yeah,
watch?
so that's the thing. He loves to play video games. And so oftentimes he'll like listen to people playing.
Mhm, mhm,
Yeah, I've tried to troubleshoot like, well, can we just listen to something instead of having the phone in your face?
mhm.
Um, and that never sticks.
I like to use kind of a good, better, best approach, especially with tweens and teens, that it's okay if we're not doing the ideal, we can still do something. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
about like the aspects, for example,
I love
of
that.
video games on the phone. So there's the light, there's the excitement, there's the sound, all the different components, and how can we maybe make one component at a time a little bit more amenable to sleep. So for example, if people fall asleep with the TV, sometimes I'll just, as a first step, have them put a pillowcase over it or a towel over it, um, if it's the sound that they really need. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to switch right away. The other thing I was thinking about is that there really are two parts to falling asleep. There's the calming down part, and then there's the going from eyes closed to actually asleep part. And I think whatever you need to do during the calming down part is okay. What's important though is when you get to the lights out, eyes closed part, it's good to be to not have something that's only there when you fall asleep. And I want to explain a little bit more about what I mean because I think this is really important and most people don't know this. But we all have sleep cycles. So we all have light sleep, then
Mm-hmm.
we go into deep sleep, then we go into dream sleep or REM sleep, and then our brains actually wake up. This is true for everybody. Whatever your um whatever kind of brain you have, however your brain works, it's still doing that. And so whatever you have to fall asleep, however you've learned to fall asleep, if you don't have that during those normal night wakings, it's harder to get back to sleep. So most of us, like I don't remember waking up 4 to 6 times per night last night. I'm sure you probably don't remember. We know that we were awake if what we
Mm-hmm.
have, like I sleep with 2 pillows and if one falls on the floor, the next day I'll remember that I woke up. But um if you don't want to hear from your kids during the night, then it's a good idea to have the environment be the same all night long. So you want the light to be the same all night long, the sound to be the same all night long. And
That
that's
makes
why I'm
so much
saying,
sense.
yeah,
Okay, so I also have a toddler. I haven't talked much about him because his sleep is, I mean, I thought it was fine, but sometimes he still wakes up in the middle of the night and he struggles to self-soothe
yeah,
back. And it's because I'm there with him when he falls asleep
yep,
and I'm not there with him when he's going back to sleep.
right. That you're exactly
And
right.
I can't be, like, that's unrealistic. So maybe I just need to not be there the first time either. Like, maybe that's what he
I
really
think if you
does
can
need
back
from me.
yourself, yeah, and if you can back yourself out. So we all have sleep associations and
Yeah.
they can be positive, they can be negative. They're not all bad. They're just connections that our brain makes between something and sleep. And so his connection to falling asleep is you. And so if you were someone that didn't mind, you were intentionally co-sleeping, you were okay being there all night long, then it wouldn't be so much of an issue. But
But eventually that boy is gonna grow up and not be able to sleep with his mama.
exactly,
And so it would
exactly.
be so much more kind of me, I think. So much healthier for me to just remove myself now, that he's 3, and he
Yeah.
really doesn't need me anymore. This is just
No, he doesn't. But also if it's something you really like, then we just kinda have to think about it. How long do you wanna
yeah,
do
we'll
it? How
just have
can we
to nap in
integrate?
the middle of the day instead.
Well, I
Yeah.
think for you, it probably, um, would be it's hard to sleep with kids. They're really restless. They move around all the time. They're
Yeah.
waking us up all the time. So, I think we maybe don't get such good sleep, if we're sleeping with our kids.
My 12-year-old is gonna love you after he hears this conversation. No, we're gonna, yeah, he's not here right now, so he's not listening. Maybe I'll just not tell him about this one.
Just delete this part.
I've been an ADHD coach for the last 5 years, and so bedtime is obviously one of the main things that I help clients troubleshoot. Um, it's really difficult to have a bedtime routine after your kid's bedtime routine. Like, you're so
Oh,
tired.
yeah. Yeah. It doesn't have to be extensive. Maybe it's brush your teeth and change your clothes, but it's things that you're doing every night. And you might already have a bedtime routine, but just not know it. But
Mhm.
even if like I said, if there's a smell you particularly like, a candle, maybe you just sniff it for a second before you get into bed. Um,
Mhm.
or most people do some kind of brushing teeth or washing face or something.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe you just put some hand lotion on. It doesn't have to be extensive. And I think usually as parents, by the time we're trying to go to sleep, we don't have a lot of energy for an extensive bedtime routine.
Yeah, I usually try to get people to do things at the same time as their kids. It's
That's
good
a good idea.
modeling. It saves time. Um,
That's a
yeah,
great.
yeah. But it's difficult. I mean, especially if it's been like a really hard bedtime, and then you just
Mhm.
sort of want to melt.
Mhm.
But then that just goes back to good, better, best, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm.
We all
Yeah.
know what the ideals are. We know we're supposed to floss our teeth every day. We know we're supposed to reapply sunscreen every 2 hours. It's not the knowing that's the tough part. I think it's the integrating the habit into your real life because we're all balancing a lot of things. We're all
Mhm.
balancing sleep, nutrition, emotion regulation, reading, all the things. We're balancing a lot of things.
Mhm. It's the praxis. What's the most surprising thing people are going to learn from your book?
I think people might be surprised at how I have handled things in my own life with my own, and I really just put it all out there. And so I also know what the ideal is.
Mhm.
And sometimes that has to be, you know, it has to be flexible. And so I think, for example, one of the things that happened with my son is that he would get really hungry during the night, and his preference was that he would have sequential snacks. So first he might ask for strawberries, and then he would wake me up a little bit later and ask for, a bagel and then something else and something else. And so I was so tired and so sleep deprived. And
Yeah.
what I ended up doing after a lot of trial and error is leaving the snacks just beside his bed. And that's not ideal in terms of like dental hygiene or anything like that. But it was one of those things that I had to compromise on. Did I think when I was thinking about having kids that I would be a mom who left lemon Oreos on the nightstand? No, I
To
did
leave
not.
out hamster snacks for your kid.
But
I
I
I
think we
remember the joy that brought my life when I could trust my kid wouldn't choke if I just left low-hanging fruits around and I could just, like,
Yep,
sleep in a little bit longer.
yep.
Um, yeah, it's so hard for parents of, like, young kids, uh, who
And
have to do all that stuff for them, like, or they
oh my
will
god.
die.
Right, right.
So,
So I think that might be a little bit surprising, and it might be surprising, like,
it
here's a
sounds
person
like
who
real
does
life
this.
advice.
Well, I do this for a living, and it's
You're
still
not a
hard.
perfect professional. Um, yeah.
I think we just need to open the space up for parents to be more flexible, and that parents
Mm.
should try
And
not to have
creative.
guilt. Yes, yeah, yeah.
And try not to have guilt
Mhm.
for when they do have to be flexible, but I was gonna say lenient.
Well, I
Yeah.
think
Pick your
it's flexible.
battles.
Exactly, and don't have your battles at bedtime because that's gonna really prolong things if you can. Sometimes we
Mhm.
can't avoid that meltdown. It's gonna happen. Um, but I think if we can be creative, like you said, and be flexible and really think about who our kid is and what is gonna help them in that moment. And sometimes that means being more lenient, like you said, or being more flexible with your parenting standards. So it's really hard to have the perfect nutrition, the perfect hygiene, the perfect sleep habits. It's just, I don't know if it's possible.
Yeah, you're just always balancing something. It's like you're doing
Yep.
good, really good at like the one thing you're focusing on.
Yep.
And then everything
Yep.
else starts to crumble a little bit. And then it's like, oh, gotta refocus.
Yeah.
Yeah, parenting is just like constantly doing that.
I think you're right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And if you
Because
have
you
more
can't
than
put
one,
100 to
then you're
everything.
no, you really can't.
And
And
if
if
you
you
have
have
more
other
than
kids,
one,
then you're balancing all of that. So I think what might be surprising to people in my book is that I'm a real person. I'm a real person with all of my flaws as a mom. Um, but I think even with those things, you can still help improve sleep for the whole family. And that's really the important picture. It's not just for one kid, it's really for everybody. And so sometimes what you're doing for one kid's sleep, you're doing it because it benefits everybody and everybody's sleep is a little bit better. So, for example, the lemon Oreos for me, it's not just me, it's my other son, it's my husband, it's, our whole house gets better sleep. And my son who is AuDHD also had to compromise because I was like, dude, you're not getting sequential snacks that just came out of the refrigerator or were just sliced how you want. But I will do
hmm
several snacks at one time beside your bed.
that's
Um,
perfect. That's called a boundary.
yeah.
That's a rule for you, not a rule for him.
Yep. Yep.
Uh-huh. That's perfect. It's really hard for us to know how to set good boundaries. It's hard to set boundaries, period, with our kids without feeling
Yep.
like, oh, that's mean or like, I don't know.
For
um,
most kids, they actually feel less anxious if they do have consistent boundaries. And especially if
they know
you
what to
have a brain
expect.
that's working differently and you're bombarded with unpredictable things all day long, then those boundaries add consistency.
Safety.
Mhm.
Thinking back to that
Mhm.
basic needs pyramid.
Yep.
Safety sits on top of sleep, but it's still important.
I think sleep should be beside the pyramid because it impacts all the things in the pyramid.
Yeah. It's like it really is the bottom, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't love how all survival needs are lumped down at the bottom, because we know scientifically, like, you can't survive without water for more than, I don't know,
Right.
so long, but, like, you can go
Right.
much longer without food. Yeah.
And maybe
Sleep,
you
I think, is like,
could
how
go.
long is it until you're actually insane?
Well, it really, your
12
problem
out
solving
no,
ability.
12
Yeah.
days.
No, I mean, I think there are different impacts for different people, but I think for kids, um, the impacts are a little bit more predictable. So I would say
Mhm.
after one night of not getting good sleep, you can see differences the next day. You can
Yeah.
see differences in attention, in mood, in really even things like reaction time, which getting back to teenagers who might be new drivers, this is important stuff.
Really important. Could you imagine if our car, like, required us to do a response test?
I don't know, would we be driving? Would we be calling Uber every time we needed to go somewhere?
I support public transportation. It wouldn't work where I live, but that's okay. That's okay. In general, it's a great idea.
I think so
All
too.
right. So we've been talking so much about it. If people want to find your book, where can they find it? When can
They
they
can
find it?
So it's being released March 4th, which I'm really excited about. And it's available any place that sells books. So probably your local independent bookstore, bookshop.com, which is a website that supports independent booksellers, and then Barnes and Noble, Amazon, the usual.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And
And you
if
can
people
also,
want to,
anyone can also go to my website, which is
yeah.
drmelissamoore.com. So DRMELISA, one S in Melissa, MOORE, two O's in More, and everything is on there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll make sure to drop both of the links in the show notes. This episode
Thanks.
actually is going to be released on the day of your book, just
That's
because it worked.
exciting.
So that's super
That's
cool.
amazing. Thank you.
So yeah, be on the lookout for that real,
Yeah.
actual, practical advice from a specialist. Amazing. Thank you so much. Is there anything sort of that you want to leave people with? Maybe if there's someone listening who feels like they're a failure parent and they can't, you know, they can't get themselves or their kids to sleep. What do you want them to
I
know?
would say, going back to kind of my inspiration for the book, you're not alone.
Mhm.
And when we're adding neurodiversity to the mix, it's not because you're a bad parent. It's not because there's anything that you could have necessarily done to prevent sleep problems from happening, but there is something to do about it. And one thing that I've learned, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I feel like there's always something to try. There's always something. So don't give up hope.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely take an experimental approach with things. Try something out. If it doesn't work, keep trying it for like a week,
Yeah.
see if maybe
Yeah.
you can figure out
Yeah,
why
you have
it's
to.
not working and then move on, if it, yeah,
Exactly. Exactly. And again, even with yourself, take a good, better, best approach. You do
yes.
not have to be perfect with everything. And even sleep. I fully believe in the power of sleep. But people feel really strongly about certain aspects of it. Co-sleeping, not co-sleeping. When you really look at the science, you should do whatever you want to do because it's not going to change your kid's path in life one way or the other. So I would say don't have guilt about those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't ruin the relationship over like what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Just do
Right.
what's good for you and your family.
I wouldn't strive for perfection over connection. So I have a lot of ways that I try to remember things, as you can see, like my 5 S's and
That's a good
um
one.
yeah, don't sacrifice connection for perfection.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask you one of my random questions?
Sure.
Okay. So I have this just little card deck. It's
Oh,
a
I love
Joy edition. The company is called Boardwalk. They're from Los Angeles. Um, they're just angry artists. So I love that.
perfect. I'm
So
gonna
some of
look it
these
up as soon
questions,
as we're finished.
yeah, they're awesome. They used to make t-shirts, but they had to stop because people kept stealing their designs.
Oh.
So now they make cards because cards are harder to steal.
Mm.
Ooh. And it's such an easy day to ask this question, too. What is your idea of a perfect weekend morning?
Staying in bed and reading with some tea.
And it's like 70 something degrees, right?
Oh yeah, maybe it's not in bed. Maybe it's outside on a chair in the sunshine.
Mm.
I really like to just have time to read anything.
What kind of genres do you read?
It really depends on how sleep deprived I am, to be honest. So sometimes it's just the newspaper or someone's Substack or, you know, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Genre, I would say I really like mysteries. I like all fiction and I love memoirs. So
Mhm.
like I said, it depends how much I have going on, how much I can
Mhm.
retain in my mind at one time.
I think I'm currently reading like 4 or 5 books, so I totally get it. Uh,
Yep.
they're all kind of like different genres.
Yeah, me too,
And
actually.
yeah, and that's great. I loved mystery when I was a kid. Agatha Christie, I think, was like
Hmm.
a hero. Um, Amazing. It's so hard to be a writer these days.
This is my first, I mean, I've written a lot of articles and, stuff for journals and chapters, but a book is definitely a different animal.
That is amazing. Um, you did it.
I did it. I'm not sure. It was all driven, I think, by passion, by my just desire to get this out there to help people because I know how hard it is. And this is a little bit, I'm sure everybody uses this quote, but I think it was Toni Morrison that said, if the book you want to read isn't out there, you have to write it. And that's kind of how I felt.
Beautiful. I've got to get started.
All right.
Amazing. Well, it was really nice chatting with you today.
Well, you too. Thank you so much, Sarah. I really love your podcast and your, Substack. To prepare for this, I watched, I learned so much from
Thank
your
you.
guests and from you and just from you talking to your other co-hosts. I think what you're doing is really great. I love when people try to bring science to real people because
Mhm.
everybody doesn't have that, as you know.
Everything feels like magic when you don't understand how it works.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm just
So
here demystifying life.
opening it up, I think that's great. I think what you're doing is really great.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here. If you want to connect with the Neurodivergent Report, you can find us at ND Report Pod on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, Substack, etc. If you're looking to support the show, the best thing you can do is subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. Please do that.
And hey, if you want to check out more about us, visit our website at ndreportpod.com. And you can also go there if you want to be a guest contributor on the show.
Until next time, be well, do good.